hopelessly out of parameter shot by that F5.
We get baited into that high aspect shot and getting into a high aspect turn fight with an F5.
He hesitated there. That could have been a kill shot.
Hello everybody, my name's Rossmum. I mostly play Cold War aircraft in DCS, primarily Red 4. I stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/Rossmum, if you want to go watch me over there. I have appeared on one of these videos before, and this is the kind of fight that I live for, that's about to be commentated on, so it should be very interesting, I think.
My name's Davey. I got invited by Enigma to commentate for this video, so thank you, Enigma. I fly Cold War stuff mostly. You may have seen me buzzing around in a Mig-19 or a Mig-21, soon to be a Mig-17 or a Mig-23. I have a YouTube channel called Hammer of Davey. I post the occasional video there, nothing real fancy, like compilation videos, stuff like that. As far as how I got into flight simming, I got into it in 2019 when I got a computer that could run it. Before then I was living vicariously through YouTube videos, like with Ralphie Dude, Tricky, Trigger, Hadwell, guys like that, pretty much anything I could find. Once I saw DCS I was kind of hooked, especially with the Mig-21, that's really where my first love was.
G'day, so I'm Envy, and Enigma has requested I give my thoughts on a clip. I'm just the dude who plays the game, so nothing special, so let's just jump right into it.
So it looks like we're in a Mig-19.
Admin 11 merged 156 3300 Tiger 2.
And we've just got a merge call out of nowhere, which is exactly what you don't want over mountains. Especially down low like this, you have no contrails to use as hints, you're going to be struggling to spot things against trees or against mountain shadows. It's not an ideal situation.
Admin 11 Overlord Bra 2823 2600 flank northeast Tiger 2.
We can see here Enigma's changing course and looking around.
Yeah, I'd start getting concerned at this point. Haven't found him yet.
Get good eyes on what's happening. You don't want to fly straight and level.
I'd be checking my 6 right now, which he does.
And right here, our F5's first mistake, a smoke trail. By coming out of Afterburner, that smoke trail gave their position away. And then they, for some reason, were offset laterally and made a really sketchy attempt to rudder over and get guns on. And that's allowed Enigma to not only dodge the gunfire, but immediately take the fight into the vertical, which is where the Mig-19 likes to fight the F5.
Good, he's just pulled the F5 into the vertical.
Already this is kind of a masterclass in how not to conduct an ambush from the F5. They didn't turn their radar on and lock in.
You know, with the F5's hair dryers as afterburners, you know, this is a good move. Eventually the F5's just going to run out of energy and he'll have to switch to horizontal.
Which is one point in their credit, but I don't know what happened with coming out of burner like that with that much of an offset. It just... You want to approach below and behind, not above and behind. It's certainly not off to one side, because there's just too high of a risk of that happening.
In a situation like this, I would not be turning head on with him. Be trying to go lag pursuit. Gives the F5 an opportunity to get a shot on you if you would turn in too early. It's good he's going back into the vertical.
Here you can see Enigma's quite slow, particularly as he comes over the top of these loops, because the Mig-19's trying to skate out to one side.
Alright, so there's actually not all that much to say here, I think. Use of the vertical was excellent. You're not reversing at any point in time, handing the advantage to the F5. The thing you have to remember is that with the Mig-19 is that it turns, yes, but it doesn't like to pull AOA. As soon as you start pulling AOA, you lose speed, you lose momentum in the fight, and then the F5 starts out-turning you. So you need to keep your speed up, and you don't want to keep on trying to lead your opponent. So with getting onto the 6 of the F5, I try to make it more clean, rather than just going straight for the kill, for the deflection shot, and just hoping and praying your aim is good, because these gun sights aren't like the ones in World War II, where they have a very clean vertical post and you get a good sight picture of where you're meant to be aiming. It's kind of guesswork unless you have some sort of gyro gun sight like in the F-86. So my only criticism of this first engagement really is the fact that tried to go for the kill shot too hard. I would have stayed in lag pursuit and just kept bringing him into plane and shot him down like that. Just be a little bit more patient.
Too high aspect for a shot.
Was not an ideal R3S shot. I would not have recommended taking that shot.
Organic shooting, too high aspect.
But it looks like Enigma's getting a bit impatient for the kill and pulling a bit hard. The Mig-19 will start to drop a wing, even at fairly high speed.
The MiG-19's guns are notoriously difficult to hit anything with.
Admin 11, threat, bra, 249, 12, 2600, hot, Tiger 2.
Got a second F5 about to encroach on the fight, but also a good shot here. This is a much better parameter for an R3S.
You need to unload a little more, and then probably have a pretty good shot here.
It's a little sketchier there, but the F5 just reverses and solves all the problems.
It sounded like there was another F5 entering the mix.
This is the most dangerous time, right after you've killed somebody and second aircraft's inbound to the fight, so...
Break,
good choice.
Admin 11, merged, 261, 2900, Tiger A2.
It was a good decision to climb and turn like that, and also be looking behind, because that is usually the time somebody will roll up on you, to third party you as well.
At this point, I'd probably be trying to kick it into burner.
Hopelessly out of parameter shot by that F5.
Yeah, and that's why his exhaust trail probably gave him away there.
Let's talk about AIM-9s, particularly the AIM-9 P5, which is all aspect. Here's how you tell whether an F5 is good or inexperienced, just by looking at what their missiles do. If you're in a turn and you see an AIM-9 turning to try and pursue you, you know you're fighting an inexperienced or lazy F5 pilot. If you are in a turn and you see the missile coming directly across the circle towards you, you're in trouble. That's an experienced pilot. What they have done is the F5 has a switch on the throttle, the Uncage. And what you do is you push and hold that switch. The holding part's important. A lot of people miss that. You push and hold that switch once you have tone on a target. You'll hear the tone get slightly louder. And what this does is it unlocks the missile seeker head so it can stabilize on that target that it's locked onto. And so you can then pull lead to give the missile a head start. And as long as you don't pull too far, it's quite a large limit. I think it's like 30 degrees or maybe even more. Essentially, you can pull until the target's behind your instrument panel. So you pull that lead, you release the missile, then you release the Uncage switch, and that missile will now have to spend much less energy turning to hit that target. You do have other risks associated with it, like if the target is in the apex of a turn and they turn head-on into you, an AIM-9P, the rear aspect missile, will miss that shot. However, an AIM-9 P5 shouldn't. It's all aspect. It should keep tracking even once the target turns into it. By doing this, you give yourself a massive improvement of your chances of hitting. And so this is why it's one of my primary criteria for judging my opponent. One of them is the range they launch their missiles at. A lot of F5s launch far too close and their missiles just can't turn, they miss. The other one is whether they uncage or not, because that is... if they don't uncage, they're not likely to get a hit. So we are fighting a not completely inexperienced, perhaps, but an F5 pilot who doesn't make the best missile shots, which is useful to know going forwards. So the F5's actually keeping their speed up reasonably well. You can hear the radar warning receiver in the Mig-19 is going off periodically. The F5's probably using dogfight mode to lock up to the MiG, which is not a bad idea.
So this is a good position to be in. What you don't want to get into is the rolling scissors, which is what the F5 looks like he's trying to get him into. You know, as long as he maintains a generous lag pursuit, he'll be fine. And the F5 has almost zero energy right now. So yeah, pretty much just stay above him, make swiping passes. Yeah, this is a great position to be in. It just has to be patient. It's unfortunate he doesn't have another missile. Eventually the F5 is going to get slow here.
This is...
too high aspect.
potentially a shot, but it's going to cost a lot of energy. So, good choice to break off rather than pursue that. And good choice on the part of the F5 to keep the speed up there. And you can see the F5 kind of weaving back and forth underneath. This will develop into something interesting in a minute.
He's still in a good position.
You can probably also see just how hard it is to keep sight of these things at low altitude against the ground. If it wasn't for the afterburner, or at times the engine smoke, you would not see them. They're just so small.
Once again, we get baited into that high aspect shot and getting into a high aspect turn fight with an F5. F5 pulls better turns at higher angle of attack, so it can reverse that turn a lot more effectively when you're slow. So we'll just push for the lag pursuit once again and try and generate that angle and be patient with that angle to generate a more favorable kill shot. There's no point in wasting ammunition. The Mig-19 doesn't get much ammunition in the first place. So probably the biggest lesson here is just keep pushing for that lag pursuit against an opponent like the F5.
We have a really high deflection angle here. This isn't really the best shot. You could potentially get a hit, but it's more likely you'll just miss.
Yeah, these are good opportunities to hit the F5. It's just very difficult to land shots on in this thing.
Now, the F5 actually makes a mistake here that lets you back into that fight, and it's unfortunate that you miss a little bit. F5 really should have waited until a little bit closer to generate that switch back to the one circle fight, because at that range you still have room to maneuver and to change the aspect of the shot and bring your nose back onto target, like you almost did. But yeah, that was a screw up on his part. It's probably would have been better not to reverse like that for his sake.
Right now this is kind of a dicey position to be in with a MiG-19. The F5 is slow, but this is also the game the F5 is eventually going to win if the pilot's good enough.
There's a time and a place to do it. This F5 just about gambled too hard there and nearly ate some 30mm for it. But you can see the actual result here as it's put them behind the MiG-19.
Good recovery of speed and energy. That's the one thing that you need to know about fighting in these jets, is you need to know exactly your strengths and weaknesses. Unlike, warbirds, where it's the strengths and weaknesses are very binary. With jets, you have the power to actually get yourself back into a position that favors your own strengths a lot better than having to work with what you've spent over the course of a fight. So good recovery of energy and speed, and back into a more offensive position on the F5, utilizing the two-circle fight, especially in the vertical as well. Good use of the vertical. A word on the vertical. It's a good tactic, yeah, if you're in a guns-only fight. The thing with these jets is that you always have to remember that the gun isn't the only weapon they have on hand. If they can generate distance and get their nose around in such a way that leaves you stuck without energy at the top of your loop, then you don't have any room to maneuver if they fire a missile, especially if you don't have flares like in the Mig-19.
So you can use your radar to kind of seed doubt in the other guy's mind and put him on edge. And it can be useful as well for making somebody break off of a friendly that they're engaging. If you aren't quite in position to get the shot yet, you can at least make your presence known and put some pressure on them, maybe make them break away. We're getting very, not really slow, but sluggish here. The MiG-19 has quite a highly swept wing, and so the more you pull, the worse things get for you. And you can hear that sort of wind rushing sound, indicative of the fact we are putting very high angle of attack on the aircraft. We're really pulling it. And you'll also notice in these turns, every now and then a wing will drop or the aircraft will kind of shimmy. That means that the MiG-19 is trying to stall.
Yeah, so I'd be trying to finish this fight right now or bug out. At this point, I would not want to be going above clouds or higher up right now. I'd want to be getting down on the deck and bugging out until I can find another place to reset and come back into the fight. Because right now the F5 is probably going to be circling the area and looking for you to be above him, skylining. The exhaust is notoriously bad in the Mig-19, very easy to see. And pretty much all the F5 has to do is keep his radar off. Which for some reason he has it on. Yeah, there he is. So if the F5 had kept his radar off, all he would have to do is basically slot him behind and under Enigma, and he'd have a free kill.
And driving that nose towards his tail keeps him in sight a lot more, and you'll always be able to keep an eye on him so long as you're positioned relatively in his trail, and you won't lose sight like that. Like, that's the biggest killer in all of these, is that you've been jumped 3 times. Well, it seems like 3 times. I think this is the 3rd bandit. I'm not sure. If it's the 2nd one, you still lost him, and he still appeared on your 6. That is the biggest challenge with how fast these jets are, and how tiny they are as well. Which is why, if you can, you just keep sticking it into their tail end, nose to tail, until they run out of energy trying to defend against you, and you can just maneuver yourself into an easy position to drive that kill home.
So here we see that wing shimmy I was talking about. We're getting quite slow in the 19. The F5 has reappeared after a period of being cloaked against the ground. And again, we've developed into the same kind of fight. The F5 is turning just hard enough to deny shots, while the Mig-19 is generally staying above. This is a little risky here. That was a decent chance at a snapshot.
He hesitated there. That could have been a kill shot.
F5s are very small targets. They generally sort of side swipe between bursts from the Mig-19.
Yeah, this is about the time he started getting low on gas. He's been fighting for quite a while now. Yeah, this is a fight the Mig-19 does not want to be in.
So we've actually... looks like we've lost sight on the F5 again.
I think he lost sight of him.
This is kind of a risky situation.
Oh no, yeah, he's conning right now.
This F5 could well still have a Sidewinder left.
As soon as he lost him, he should have just headed straight for the ground.
But on the other, it's a risk I really wouldn't be willing to take. There it is.
Yeah, yeah, there's a missile.
And this time, they appear to have uncaged it, at least partially, and they get the kill. But that was a pretty good fight. Pretty good demonstration of some important concepts that I feel don't really get enough airtime in DCS. And it was a good trade, 1 F5 for 1 Mig-19, and a second F5, no doubt, on the way back to base for some more missiles.
Yeah, the first fight was definitely better. He maintained better situational awareness. The second fight, he gave himself away multiple times by going into the vertical when he lost sight of his opponent. Trying to find him against the ground is going to be very difficult. When you lose sight of an opponent in an area like this, I'd be making as many callouts as I can, because the Overlord bot is going to be able to see everything. So the best choice, instead of going up and trying to look down and find him, is to go down and look up to try and find him. The Mig-19's got a way better climbing rate than the F5. So you can use that to your advantage. If he's coming head-on with you and you're under him, you can just pull up and into him and wait for him to pass over you, and then you just come back down on top of him. And chances are the F5 is going to be able to react in time. And if he does, you're in a good position to start making moves and taking shots. The problem is when you're above an opponent, in the Mig-19 especially, it's such a easy target to pick out. You're shiny, you're pointy. The wing sweep is really easy to pick out, and not to mention the exhaust. I mean, any feature in that plane, if you don't have the burner on and you're above him, you're gonna stick out like sore thumb. So my advice, I would have bugged out and reset and come back in. I just basically tried to spam Overlord until I could get a good bearing on where the opponent was, and then come back in on my turns. He was basically waiting for the F5 to show up on his 6, and that's not a good position to be in, because when eventually he is going to get a shot that's going to kill you. So you want to be on the offensive a lot more than the defensive, and most of the fight he was on the defensive in that second fight. But you know, mistakes are made, but you know, there's good lessons to be learned from them.
Before giving my thoughts, I want to thank everyone for being willing to commentate. These videos are only viable with others being willing to spend the time to give their thoughts. So please check out their channels in the description below. This will help me secure a constant rotation of opinions for future videos. Now my thoughts on the fight. I think this was interesting because it showed a pretty classic case of how to use a Mig-19. In both fights I did have a pretty good position most of the time, and I was able to get the F5 into spots where I was able to get my nose somewhat on. The issue is that I did try to rush it a bit and go for deflection shots instead of just trying to push the F5 lower into the ground. This is what the others were saying about passing through the tail instead of going for the nose. Some not super obvious influences also swayed this fight quite a bit. The radar lock from the F5 when he was to my side made me think there was another one around, and my general fuel state pressured me to try to end the fight fast, and I was trying to cut corners. Lastly, DCS spotting continues to rears its head, and this is ultimately decided the fight. Me losing contact and my actions after put me in a position where I was really easy to acquire. This is especially important in winter, where you can con at lower altitudes. If you lose a contact, it may make sense to dip out and stay concealed instead of skylining yourself. I hope you guys found this fight interesting. Please consider subscribing if you did, and I hope you have a good one. Thank you.